Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is July the 3rd, 2020. Strong hand, long-term thinking. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. I'm offended by selling. Personal responsibility is new counterculture. Conviction. All right, we got some dudes with conviction here. Eugene is back. He's in Belarus. Oh, yeah, that's a unique perspective. J.W. Weatherman makes his 1,000th appearance on the show. It's awesome to have him back here, baby. He's a regular. Russ hasn't been on for a while. He's here. Okay, dudes. We got quite a panel here. Best freaking guests in the space. They can ask each other questions. I can ask them questions. You can ask questions in the chat. Do a super chat or type in Bitcoin Meister. Hello, my elite friends. I hope your holiday weekend is going just swimmingly. Although you might not be allowed to swim where you are, depending all these rules. Anyway, so I'm here on YouTube, and the news of the week has been so clickbaity. It's unbelievable. Like, we have a blockchain that monitors food production. I mean, how many times have we heard this before? And we don't talk about that stuff here. So, I mean, I wanted to kind of get deep and get into a topic that it's something that's valid every week. And that is, Bitcoin isn't perfect. I love Bitcoin. I think it's great. But there's ways it could improve. Let's have some critical talk about Bitcoin here. Because if you can't be critical about something, then you're just a blind worshiper, and that's not cool. So we'll start with JW. He can be critical of a lot of things. So, what are some ways Bitcoin can improve, or what are your thoughts on how Bitcoin isn't perfect?
All right, so this is a little bit. This is I know I have the reputation for being the curmudgeonly jerk, but really it's kind of a challenge because Bitcoin's open source software, right? So if I really knew how to fix it or knew how to make it better, then it would be better already. I would have already written the code or paid somebody to execute the idea and gotten it merged in, I'm sure, because it's not just open source, but it is a healthy open source project where I haven't seen any good ideas that don't have a lot of negative trade-offs not make its way in. But with that caveat, I'll accept the challenge of saying some things about it that are critical. I think one is I really don't want to wait for simplicity. This Russell O'Connor project, this Blockstream project, it went after smart contracts and scripting languages the right way. Really from like a first principles ground level approach. And it's really, really amazing. And some of the implications of this are that you wouldn't really have to upgrade Bitcoin anymore. Once we have this, it's as complete of a programming language as you could possibly want on a blockchain. It's not Turing complete because that's insane and doesn't make any sense for any application and has all kinds of negatives. So it's actually what Ethereum, for example, purported to be, and all this this hype. It's the actual realization of that. And I don't know how long we're gonna have to wait for it. So if I had to say something critical, it'd be simplicity now. Just the reason that we wouldn't have to upgrade. Like the soft forks that we're all excited about, like Schnorr signatures and all that sort of stuff, Taproot. Those take so much time to get implemented because we have to you can think of it as like hard coding those into the protocol. Whereas once we have something like simplicity, you don't have to do that. It might be inefficient to run that code. And so you could kind of say we would have to, what I'll call the shortcuts, the jets part of simplicity. You do sort of have to upgrade the network to get that. But it's only efficiency gain stuff, right? So it shouldn't be very controversial. So I feel like that really limits what we would call an upgrade. So I want that right now. And I'll be critical of the community too. I think in general, it's a good group of folks. There's a lot of degenerates that are attracted to any sort of rebellious sort of movement. So, we have more than our fair share of scumbags, I would say. And we also have, quite a few simps, more than I think any of us expected with what happened with the virus. We saw very few people, and I'll give Adam credit for being one of, I think, honestly, less than half a dozen people that I can think of that, Francis Pillow, Parabolic Trav. There's a few other folks that are not coming to top of. Rollo, McFlugel, and Heavily Armored Clown. Like, very few people saw this as bullshit or bullcrap, excuse me, from the beginning. And Adam was one of them, which is part of the reason I wanted to make sure to show up today. So that I'd say those two things are disappointing, with the big caveat of, look, man, it's open source software and it's doing what it can do.
Well, thank you very much there. Pound that like button, everybody, we are living in a time of so many lies, and it's like now you're like people are almost heroic for telling the truth. I mean, that's a beyond Bitcoin type of a subject matter out there. But yeah, the simping, wow. But I do want to say it does seem like cancel culture has come to Bitcoin. But the amazing thing is that Bitcoin, here I'm saying Bitcoin definitely fights mainstream cancel culture. I will say that. As we saw this week, there was a big YouTuber. We probably can't say his name. SM, let's call him SM, got banned from YouTube, and he has raised so much contributions through Bitcoin. And it just shows you that even though he's gone from this platform, he can still be funded, and that Bitcoin does not bow to cancel culture. But there are people in Bitcoin that definitely are part of the cancel culture now. I guess we'll talk about that later. All right, Russ, what are ways that Bitcoin can improve your critical analysis of Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, as you know, I've been following Bitcoin since it was $42, right? And I have that kind of approach to things that give me the better argument. I'm always open to the better argument. And anybody that isn't, I think they're kind of captured by uncommon sense, in a ways. But for me, I spent that whole time trying to find issues with Bitcoin. Now, we talk about the scaling to ad nauseum. I think a lot of it really comes down to, a simple proposition. Right, we're going to need financial sovereignty. You have a guest on here that actually will probably explicate really the reasons why you want that. But even here in a stable U.S. economy, we still will want that as well. But you don't have a steam drill to, unclog your sink, right? And some people present that as a problem. All right, and I think people have to realize what Bitcoin actually does. The biggest problem in Bitcoin today is the control over the narrative. And there should be control, but there's a certain narrative that has to slowly evolve, and its complexity. Bitcoin as a program, as a protocol, is very simple, I guess, right? In terms of use, but its implications are so profound, and it touches every area of our lives in the same way money does. And it has the same impacts. And so for a lot of those reasons, I think people get confused. And I like to think about the difference between Bitcoin and altcoins is the difference between 1 and 1 is 2, and 1 and 1 is possibly 11 or possibly 3, depending on how you want to play with that, right? But when it comes down to a final accounting of what happens in our economy, we want a good calculator. We don't want a calculator that does 1 and 1 is 2. 1 and 1 is 3 or 1 and 1 is 11. Do you know what I'm saying? And so to me, it's the control over that narrative, what happens. And I think over time, this narrative has evolved because a lot of us in the Bitcoin maximalist camp, we've been talking about these issues because we've been debating them. We've been open to the better argument the whole time and not to marketing. Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing group, and that's a good thing because it will ultimately sell itself. But unfortunately, the 80%ers get in the way. And I agree with JW here. And that at the end of the day, it's a lot of new people that came into this space that didn't have ideals. They're just empty speculating. And that's okay. That's what a free market does. But that's also its strength. That's what Andreas mentions when he talks about Bitcoin as a sewer rat. And that's a strength. I'm going to want to make the argument. I really tried to look at what I thought were some problems with Bitcoin, but I think ultimately it's going to be the world's last money. It will be the world's last money and it will be the last money until there's no need for savings. I mean, we might reach that Jeremy Rafkin point of zero marginal cost society. In that case, why do you have savings? A guy who has no money can get just as much as, his needs are fulfilled in the same way as the other guys. We'll fight over land possibly for a while. Who knows? But ultimately, there's real scarcity in the world. I'm just saying you can't eliminate some. But ultimately, I think this is going to be the world's last money. And the narrative, and the fight over that narrative is really the only problem I found right now. And I do fault the Bitcoin community because people like Peter Schiff can still get out there and make dumb arguments that merchants don't accept Bitcoin. Yeah. But in the same way, they don't accept gold with his little stupid plastic. It just bothers me that he's able to make these arguments with very competent people like Saifuddin and some of these others. Anyhow, I will go on. I'll pause for everybody else.
Okay. Peter Schiff is he comes up a lot around here. Just ignore him, people. Ignore him. All right, let's go to the unique perspective of our buddy in Belarus. It is Eugene. Do you have a take on a critical take on Bitcoin?
First of all, Adam, thanks for getting back to the show again. Yes, I'm in Belarus, and now it's the 3rd of July, and today we have an official day of independence in our country, but I would say about that later. Let's start with Bitcoin. I'm not an IT guy. I'm not a programmer. I'm just an economist. I'm just an Austrian economist. And I came into Bitcoin space in 2017 just because I realized very clearly that Bitcoin, first time of the human history, may return the humanity to the idea of sound money. And do you understand what I mean? And I try to explore that space. I show a lot, the IC hype and so on and so forth. We are not going to talk about that. So as an economist, I'm trying to look on Bitcoin as a possible money. And when I say money, I mean the commonly accepted medium of exchange, the classical definition of money from any Austrian economist perspective. And what do we see? Does Bitcoin serve the function of commonly accepted medium of exchange? Has it been accepted in this function? Definitely, we can't say that. Is it serve the function of store of value? Definitely yes. Does it serve the function of unit of account? Definitely no, and I have no prediction will it be the same or not. That's my economist perspective view or on Bitcoin. Nevertheless, from this point of view, I am considering Bitcoin like a very, very interesting phenomena, and we cannot even predict all the possible consequences of Bitcoin living here on our planet Earth and accepting the Father and Father. That's my opinion. I cannot criticize Bitcoin. That's my point.
Well, you gave a logical explanation there. Hey, the thing is that I wanted to point out is that the guests I have on this show and me, we're not clickbaiting saying Bitcoin to 1 million tomorrow. Bitcoin to some parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem have become a joke that way, where the people are just blindly spouting out things to make people happy. And if you really, I believe, if you believe long term for Bitcoin, you're willing to say, you know what? It's not perfect. It's not going to be $1 million tomorrow, type of thing. I'm not here for the clickbait. I'm here for the long term. So that was my point in starting the show this way. There is a guy out there, Doug here, asked. Well, this is a question for Eugene. Eugene, as an Austrian economist, at this point in your life, in your journey, living in a country that has gone through economic problems and where store of value is very important. What is your take on gold and precious metals now that you've become a Bitcoiner? Do you still have respect? What's your take on precious metals?
If we talk about precious metals, we do see the commonly accepted fact that the majority, not the vast majority, but a huge amount of precious metals are in the big buildings of central banks. And you know what I mean. Why is it so? Because they truly understand the real value of the fiat fraud so-called money, or how to say, I call this situation in today's world finance like a territorial monopoly on fraudulent false money printing. And all the government, any government in the world has its own monopoly. That's why they do value gold. That's why every clear guy values gold. Of course, we cannot use gold as money in today's world. It's too hard. But we understand that cryptocurrencies, they may serve due to its deficit, due to its function, to tangibility, to convenient ways of transmitting it. It can serve like gold, like sound money. So I truly believe that Bitcoin is able to return humanity to the sound money idea. That's my opinion about gold and Bitcoin.
All right. So I wanted to put it out there that there are going to be some precious metal guys that say that gold is the only true store of value. It's et cetera. Say it's that I just want to say that both can exist. We can have both out there. I am by far a fan of Bitcoin over cryptocurrency, but the person in the chat was saying, can't both exist at the same time? Sure, yeah, why? But both can exist. Yes.
Just like horse and carriages can exist with Maseratis.
Yes.
Look,
yes.
Look, at the end of the day, look, gold failed at least 3 times, at least 2 times, right, in this last century to be a monetary base. It's not good. And the idea of medium of exchange as being an aspect of money, no, that's bifurcated. Bitcoin offers us a way of understanding money in terms other than a lump of metal. All right. And so there's new properties that are going to emerge, and there's certain properties of what we thought was part of money. Medium of exchange. No, you can do medium of exchange with Chuck E. Cheese tokens.
Oh, someone's phone rang there. JW, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that they can coexist, right? Like we have silver physically in existence right now and gold. And when we were on sort of an international gold standard, silver still existed even though it wasn't really used as money. So the question isn't like, will those materials exist? The question is, can you have multiple things acting as money? And I think Andreas, more than anybody else, has done a huge disservice to the Bitcoin community and the general knowledge and understanding of how this stuff works in general. Because money is always one thing. You can't have multiple monies. That's called barter. If we're just trading chickens for ducks, for silver, for gold, for whatever, that's barter. And we don't want that because that's not a very efficient system, right? We would have probably take nuclear war on a global scale to push us back to barter. So if you're sitting on some bags of the fraud coin I call gold, which is no more legitimate and has no more opportunity to become monetized than Ripple or anything else. Like the other guest said, it served its purpose, right? It's got a central banking multiple times. It has inherent flaws built into it of divisibility and verifiability and transportability. Those things are lacking in such a way that it always leads to banking, and banking in that way always leads to central banking. So we're not going back to gold. I mean, if we did, it would just be a part of resetting the fiat system. It's not a solution to any problem that we have. So to me, it's just another scam coin when you're talking about it in regard to, a monetary system. Now, if you want to make electronics or something, you have a bad tooth, it's a great option, but it doesn't work as money.
Hey, I wanted to say, pound that like button if you knew the moment that Russ brought up Andreas, that JW would bring up Andreas too, but in a little different way. Pound that like, I knew that was coming. Dude.
Hey,
right.
Just for note, Andreas has blocked me a long time ago.
It's probably because of your take on men going their own, that type of subject matter.
I think it's because he posted that picture of Andreas licking the hammer.
Look, I love the guy. Don't get me wrong. I love the guy. I was critical of one of the remarks that he had made about kind of sitting on the fence. And I reminded him that, in a moving train, there's no neutral position. You know, he was trying to be, but at the end of the day, look, Andreas, his philosophy, he's focused on the social aspects of this, and that's good. So, you know, look, to me, Andreas didn't block me because of MGTOW. I think people like Vortex has blocked me because of MGTOW. Actually, I had, oh my God.
We're talking cancel culture here. I knew this.
The money.
You know what? I got to say, Andreas is.
Did I lose?
Andreas is definitely politically
I can't
correct.
hear anybody. I just lost.
You can't hear me
somehow.
Log off, log on, and log off. There. Hang on, dudes. You're seeing real stuff here. Hang on.
Well, while you guys are doing that, I'll just pontificate about all the things.
Can you hear me now?
About the
yes,
social justice warrior known as Andreas.
Yes, please talk about. That's what I want to say. He's politically correct. He's into the. Russ said it right. That he's into some social aspects, and hey, that's something we got to. Anyone can come to the space, but take it over, JW.
Oh no, I was just being a pain in the butt there. No, I think he because it got brought up, and I am critical of the guy, but I think he's probably a decent dude, and I know that he brought a lot of people into Bitcoin, and so he's probably had a more positive impact on Bitcoin than I can hope to. But at the same time, you know, this social justice warrior stuff just doesn't mix well with Bitcoin. We got to clear that stuff out. You know, I'm glad he brought some gold, but he brought some dross too, and you know, it's kind of all of our jobs to try to burn that stuff off. The social justice warrior stuff is just acid, and socialism is not a good idea. That's why we need Bitcoin. So if you're in that mindset, you know, hopefully over time that'll get cleared up. But the more insidious thing, and the reason that I do want to focus on this, is the intellectual concept of many monies. That's been used as scam coin cover. It's really infected a lot of folks in Bitcoin. That's why we have the term cryptocurrencies, I think. And you know, we have all these fraud coins running around. It's really important that people understand what money is and how it works, and that it has to be that third thing that facilitates a transaction. It can't be the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth thing, or it's barter. And I think that that's obvious once you really stop and think about it, but there's been a whole lot of money behind confusing people on that particular topic, because it opens up the door for a lot of theft. And unfortunately, I think Andreas was the most effective at opening and holding that door open for the longest. So, you know, we gotta beat on the stuff that's nonsense. But you know, it doesn't mean that he hasn't contributed quite a bit, and I don't want to take that away from the guy.
Look, you know, if you want to talk about social justice, though, everybody is here for a social justice reason. If we want good money, you know, and that's not an issue that is unsocial, and that's embedded in the social. And there's a lot of issues. I won't go far off the tangent, but there is a real important reason why libertarians have values, anarchists actually have values, as well as conservatives or these trad cons. Everybody has values, and they want to express those values. Bitcoin is a nice way of expressing monetary value for sure. But what I think should be made very clear with this, at least in terms of what its deficits are, what have you, is that it's not a medium of exchange. These Chuck E. Cheese tokens, these fiat cryptos, whatever they're going to create, these stable tokens, these can all function independently. And I don't know. I mean, I do get the idea that you can't have more than one money because you're talking about barter. I do agree. That's a compelling argument. But at the end of the day, the way these things are going to be linked up, it's going to be transparent. You'll be moving in and out of Chuck E. Cheese tokens, you know, because look, if I go to buy something, and this is my fundamental critique of the money medium of exchange argument, essentially of Bcash and these others, is if I go out and I buy something and the merchant doesn't get the payment, or if I don't get the product, I want someone to call. When it comes to my store of value, I have an unconfiscatable amount of value that I can control, unlike gold. That's why gold is in all these central banks. It was confiscated, guys. And people care about that. That's a social justice issue as well. Let's not minimize that term, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to make just one comment, and then I'm going to let the Austrian economist jump in because I think he'll explain it in some good depth. But I think along with that many monies is this concept that you can separate out the attributes of medium of exchange, store of value, and unit of account. And if anybody's confused about that, just focus on what a unit of account is and how it works. Because what we're doing in Austrian economics is we're describing how money functions and the problems that it solves. And it's really the scam coiners that have tried to bifurcate that into three different separatable things, right? So it's like somebody looking at a horse and saying a horse has four legs and it also has a mane. And then somebody comes along and says, you can have a mane and you can have four legs. It's like, no, we're describing a horse. You don't get it. And that, I think that error has been really, really well funded. I do think Roger pushed that harder than anybody, but I'll leave it at that and let us get some more detail from the pro.
Austrian economics. Eugene, you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, may you rebuild the question? I didn't understand the real question.
Okay, so the question is, can you, when we're talking about money, can you have one money that acts as a store of value and another asset that acts as a unit of or a medium of exchange, and a different one that acts as a unit of account, and maybe a third one that acts as a store of value? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I would say that let market decide what to use for any function, because first of all, from the system engineering thinking, first of all, we need function, and secondly, we need something X which will serve this function best, or something Y which will serve this function best. Money is the function, the most and the only one major function of money is to be media of exchange. It's like money developed. All other functions are consequence from this. If to answer, may we have money, the best money for media of exchange or best money for unit of account? I really don't know. That's looks like a very interesting situation. Think viewing situation.
Well, look.
Theoretically, yes. Theoretical, but let the market decide. Let the entrepreneurs decide. Let the people decide. That's the answer from the praxeological point of Austrians.
Yeah, look, you could look at it from two different sides here, right? Or there's probably a third too, if you want to talk about it as an ideal speculative asset. I do make those arguments there too. But you can look at it as the most saleable thing, right? Or you could also look at it as the most unconfiscatable account. I want my money, my value to be in the most unconfiscatable account. I'll transfer some of that into all these Chuck E. Cheese tokens all you want. And it'll sell just like these fiat sell, because everybody will have their own reasons for whatever token they have. I think it'll be as liquid and as fluid as systems as you want. Maybe even transparent. But medium of exchange, in my opinion, has left the building. When we talk about it, a lot of economists are still really just talking about this lump of metal, like a couple thousand years of this stuff. Or no, I'd say since Adam Smith, right? But look, we have to understand, I think we have to probably come to terms or have more of these types of arguments or debates around what aspects of money are still viable. Because look, at the end of the day, the central, banks, these larger institutions can end up having, 29,990,000, Bitcoin, and that one Bitcoin can still service the global economy. If you add enough zeros at the end of that, that will not be an issue. No other asset could do that. At some point, you divide an atom of gold and you don't have gold. There's limits to a lot of things, but not math.
Very good point there. All right, we'll let JW conclude this topic. Any conclusionary thoughts on this you wanted to add, JW?
Yeah, I've got about 3 hours of lectures on this topic. I'm just going to shill my own project. So if you go out to 10hoursofbitcoin.com, there's some stuff from other folks, but my lectures are all focused on basically kind of trying to summarize and apply Mises's human action to Bitcoin. So if you're interested in that, take a look. I will say that so far, I'm not aware of a single person that's gone through that 10 hours and still thinks that you can have many monies, that you can separate out a unit of account and medium of exchange, or that these scam coins are viable. So you can be the first one to break my perfect record if you actually sit down and go through the material and tell me that you still think those things are possible.
All right, these dudes are all linked to below. I should have said that. They're all linked to below. My backup channel's linked to below. By the way, I'm doing an extra show on my backup channel, like right after this show. So tune in there, dudes. You're getting a bonus today. But what's your exact site again, JW? Where the courses are at? It's an easy to remember URL from what I remember.
Yeah, it's 10hoursofbitcoin.com, and you can either type in 10 or just put in 10hoursofbitcoin.com.
And again, they're all they're linked to below. Everybody's linked to below. Well, Russ isn't linked to below because his social media is well, he's a private type of dude. But you can DM them and everything, ask them questions, et cetera, et cetera. You know, now that we're on the topic of gold and This Week in Bitcoin, I do just want to remind everyone that at the beginning of the week, we had that news from China that a gold dealer had put up fake gold as collateral to a loan. So it's definitely fakeable. It's definitely unconfiscatable.
83 tons. 83 tons
amazing.
of gold. It's an incredible amount of gold and a decent percentage of China's.
And they leveraged, I think, $2 billion worth of money on that too.
Yeah, it's questionable. It might have, some of it might have been real at first. I mean, there's all sorts of corruption over there. Like, who knows if they replaced it at one time? All that's known is at the end of the day, it was fake. Okay,
But they found 1,000 gold bars here in our bullion banks. Some of them had the same serial number. I can have an Excel sheet and make sure that didn't happen.
Yeah, there's corruption involved in that entire that old school system, and that's why hey, we're living in a technological world. People can still do the horse and buggy if they want to. People will always ride horses. People will always ride horses. People will always have gold. And so that's my take on the whole thing. It's I'm the Bitcoin Meister. I'm not the Gold Meister. Okay. Let's go on to, well, here's something I want to get a quick take since the new clickbaity news/noise. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about now, because it's becoming apparent, this DeFi thing. It's definitely not going away. Everybody, people like to have headlines about it. I just want to get everyone's take on. Well, I don't even know. Give a darn about DeFi. That's a good question too. But let's start with Russ. Have you? Do you think this DeFi thing in Ethereum is going to be bigger than the ICO? And do you think it's a bunch of hot air? And are you affected by it, or have you ignored it?
I think it's silly because all this technology needs to be built on the most stable, secure blockchain.
Yeah, and so if it's built on Ethereum, you're saying no. It's
again, just like the other guy had said, like it's Turing complete. It's like an operating system, right? And what operating system do you know that can't be exploited? I mean, this is silly.
Yeah, and DeFi. There's already been exploits for DeFi, but we talked about, I think, a little bit about marketing before. Also, I think it's a unique marketing tool for Ethereum. I mean, it's being used as a marketing tool. I think people they want it in their name so that they get publicity at this point. To
me, the end game with this is that Bitcoin's going to be this Bitcoin Hydra. Look, all possible innovation is going to be built around Bitcoin as second, third layer, as side chains. And, adding tokens to their project is only going to make it where people will go to projects that are more decentralized. You only have one blockchain. It only does one thing. Blockchain technology only does one thing. And don't get me wrong, you don't use a steam drill to unclog your sink. Okay? So there's what we take to be flaws with Bitcoin is just an inherent use right, and non-use of blockchain. That's all it does. It does 1 and 1 is 2. It doesn't do 1 and 1 is 3. 1 and 1 is 11. It's not going to do that. No matter how much they sell it, everybody's going to want these smart contracts, this decentralized finance, to be built around the most secure. And to me, the best innovation, I'll say it again on your show, the biggest innovation since blockchain itself was that SegWit, because it made Bitcoin more secure. It made it more stable, but it made it extensible. And so the world is free to have fun and build something that actually proves itself in the free market.
All right, JW, you've commented on DeFi before, but how much bigger do you think this thing is going to get?
I don't think I have, man. I don't think I have.
I thought, well, you've done. Maybe I get confused with your Ethereum overall take.
Yeah. I've been obviously critical of Ethereum since I first wrote the Bitcoin threat model, and the contrast is just obvious. But I think this is good. I think what's happening is, I think Ethereum is revealing itself to be a little bit more like OneCoin than anybody would have thought, right? I think that the guys that put it together, they had scam backgrounds, right? Like Vitalik, this is not his first scam. He's run several scams that are public knowledge if you look into them. And they do seem to come out of Russia. It seems to be a little bit of a cottage industry there. OneCoin was definitely guys that were running Ponzi schemes in Russia and doing money laundering. And I think that's really probably what Ethereum is. It's a combination of money laundering. Like that's really what's pushing up the price, and Ponzi scheme sort of dynamics where they know how to promote these things. They don't actually need a product that works. They just need a sort of a name and a product to sell it. And then I think at some point we're going to realize maybe some details on even the multi-level marketing aspect. Like I can't wait to find out how they fund their shills, right? If that comes out, I think that'll be really enlightening. We'll see it's a lot more like Plus token than we ever would have thought. So I think the fact that this is just a more obvious Ponzi scheme, this whole DeFi thing, is good. It means that the narrative that they can compete with Bitcoin, that they can build a Turing complete blockchain, that they're going to do smart contracts, that they're going to do anything really. I think all of that has completely fallen apart now, and now it's just much more of a raw Ponzi, right? Like you put money in, you get 100% interest out, right? It's very classic and very typical, and I think that's really helpful. It needed to get to this point. I don't know where it goes from here. Probably it can just keep rinsing and repeating these Ponzi's with a very thin layer of technical jargon on top. So I think it's a great development.
Oh no! I mean, wait till the Ethereum Foundation decides how many tokens they're going to have. Then the value goes up.
Well, I think JW. I'm not surprised by JW's take on all this. Let's move over to Eastern Europe, though, and a dude who's very familiar with Russians. Eugene, do you actually hear about DeFi over there, or are you just engrossed in Bitcoin?
Definitely, I do hear a lot of DeFi and BNMC of different Russian language speaking events online. I do hear a lot of DeFi, and I constantly. And I'm totally assured. I see a lot of guys who are talking about DeFi, and even they call it's Defi, which sounds like some funny for American ear. But a couple of guys very experienced in this topic said to me yesterday that they are totally confident that DeFi will become the next hype, like an ICO we had in 2017. They are totally confident because they are observing on trends, observing from Google statistic and so on and so forth. And they do see that the situation in DeFi space is being growing like the situation in ICO space was growing in 2015 and 16 before it came to 2017. That's my insight, and I'm sharing it with you guys. So we even decided to make a long online weekly show in Russian-speaking space, of course, concerning DeFi, because predicting this future hype for maybe 2021 and 24 for the next couple of years will not be short. We want to predict this hype. We want to bet on this hype and to be prepared from the media side of that. That's the insight I'm sharing with you.
I mean, that right there is a clear example of how the narrative is probably the biggest, like the linchpin with Bitcoin adoption and the lack of control over that narrative. I mean, they did the same thing with the whole blockchain, not Bitcoin, and you know.
Yeah, but that's the thing. In a decentralized land, this is where the big boys play. We just, whoever takes control of the narrative takes control of the narrative. And right now, the hype is surrounding. I agree with Eugene there that yeah, it's the next ICO thing, and a lot of people are just going to join it because they FOMO. And by the way, Eugene, again, the people you were talking about with this, were they Russian-speaking dudes?
Yes, they're Russian speaking,
Okay.
But they are constantly in the Ukraine, the country under Belarus, the former Soviet Republic.
So I'm sure Eastern Europe will produce all sorts of interesting DeFi products. Be careful of those interesting ones, but still, people, it's unbelievable that people will still like throw money at Ukraine-based DeFi companies, supposed companies.
Well, what I think is really interesting about what Eugene said there, and I think it's telling, is that he didn't say it works, right? He didn't say, "Oh, this is an amazing technology that enables some new user experience that we didn't have before." He said, "There is a trend. We're getting confident that this trend exists, and we're going to ride that bad boy for all it's worth." So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. And if it's not DeFi, even if it's not related to Bitcoin, like these things are happening all over the place, right? A lot of green energy stuff was like this. The ribbon farm guy posted a great thread on Twitter the other day about what a grift is, and that a grift is taking advantage of sort of a problem that doesn't really have a great solution and then papering over that to rip people off. And it's not like a con, because you never know for sure that you've really been had. Because there's always, oh, well, we intended, the straws to be a social movement, not really impact plastic or something, right? So I think those things happen, but it's not Bitcoin. It doesn't matter to Bitcoin. It has nothing to do with creating a new global monetary system. It's just, it's just a different form of fraud that some people will be able to profit as they ride it up. But
I think that's
if you want to do that, you could do it.
That's a really important point. It's not Bitcoin, and it does. If DeFi is going to explode due to people not understanding what it is and just they want to ride it, fine, yeah, ride it, because there's going to be a crash too. It doesn't. It might take away some people's interest in Bitcoin. It might distract some people from Bitcoin in the short term, but in the long term, the people who care about store of value and true decentralization will come to Bitcoin, because the irony of the DeFi thing is that they're all centralized around like a company or something that controls it. That there's a weak point. There's something that can be hacked. There's it's very interesting. It's an ironic name to call it DeFi, decentralized finance. It's more decentralized than traditional finance, perhaps. One can make that argument. But JW, you pointing out the specifics of what Eugene said. Very good observation there. That people know it's just going to be a big marketing thing. Get in now if you're one of those people that just covers this type of thing. Again, I'm not saying to do that, but you can see how the hype machine is going to work. Well,
it's a Dave and Buster's token.
Dave and Buster's token. Okay, let's go back to Eugene here, and you guys might have questions for him about this too, because he's got. We don't. So shockingly enough. Eugene is like the only dude I know from Belarus who speaks English, who's out there in the space.
Really?
Well, yeah. And Belarus was in the news because, they've been in the news for two things. The Bitcoin news, because they were going to have a nuclear power plant that helped mine Bitcoin. So their leader said. And the other reason Belarus was in the news is because all the SJWs of the world and all the 80%ers and all the virus panic people said that everybody was going to die in Belarus because they didn't give a darn about Belarus was the only country on the planet Earth. They kept on playing sports. They went about their lives. And as you can see, Eugene is alive and fine. So, but there's some bigger issues in Belarus right now with their leader, who's been leading since 1994. So quickly, Eugene, tell us the political situation right there, and how you guys handled the virus. Also, is everybody all right there?
Yeah, I need 60 seconds for explain this short and very sad story. Our dictator, Alexander Lukashenko, he has been on the power for 26 years since he had been elected on the first and the last democratic elections in 1994. And in August 9, we will have another presidential election. And Alexander Lukashenko, of course, he's running on his seventh, I'm not mistaken, seventh cadentia. And the situation is that 97% of population hate him. He has less than 3% of legitimacy right now. And the problem is he doesn't understand this thing at all. And the current situation I would have described as a guerrilla war of population against powers, of citizens against authorities, of people against governments. And today's situation is we even created, Belarusians have even created a meme named Sasha Free Person. Sasha is a Russian equivalent of name Alexander. Sasha Free Person of his legitimacy. And this situation we call in population flip-flop revolution. Why flip-flop? Flip-flop. Because Lukashenko has mustaches and mustache. It reminds us the cockroach. And what's the best weapon against cockroach? That's the flip-flop. Yeah. So all the Belarusians now, they take all their flip-flops and making claps and so on and so forth. That's the meme. Like decentralized power of the internet, of the Telegram channels, so on and so forth. Distributed power of population now fights rigid and centralized government machine. And the good news are that this rigid government machine doesn't understand that the world had changed and that technology is super changed. We live in a world of decentralized technology, and that gives us a big hope that dictatorship will have ended, and blockchain maybe, or decentralized distributed technologies, or even distributed communications will help us to fight against this dictatorship power. And by the worse, the situation in our eastern neighbor Russia are quite the same. Vladimir Putin has finally destroyed the constitution on the 1st of July and the so-called people's voting plebiscite and so on and so forth. Now, these countries, Belarus and Russia, are very look alike, and the situation is totally understandable and totally changing. Maybe you Americans you don't understand. Maybe you do understand.
No, they don't. They don't. They think Russia is this unstoppable force. There's all these lies in America that Russia is so powerful and Putin is so loved and Putin is so scary. What you're saying, he's nothing but a paper tiger, and that's what I've been saying all along too. He's just like your dictator. He's very similar, getting away with corruption. And now the technologies. You're saying in your country that the technology has caught up. Everybody realizes this dude is not liked at all, but yet he's won. So these elections are fake, is what you're saying. They're fake. So when he wins this next fake election, what's going to happen? Are you saying that everyone's going to get out in their flip-flops and it's going to be more than just flip-flops they're going to be revolting with, or what?
That's a very good question. Of course, we do understand that if he wins this election, so-called fake elections, like he did before, it will not stop the guerrilla war of population. People will not stop to hate the dictator, and the situation will be getting worse and worse and worse. It will not decide the problem, and he does not understand this thing. And he cannot afford to leave his presidential chair freely. He cannot afford him to say, well, yes, like President Yeltsin 20 years ago in Russia said, I'm tired and I'm leaving. Lukashenko is not able to do the same. That's the situation. I cannot even predict how will it end, but we will see till the end of 2020.
Look, you guys are really just talking about crude and overt forms of totalitarianism. Look, we in the West, we figured out how to make these subtle, more comforting, kind of nice, cuddly forms of totalitarianism. At the end of the day, you're right. These governments are rigid, but we're seeing what the problem is. The linchpin for all these governments is their money.
There is an
exit, and it's Bitcoin. There's no political solution to political issues. There's one.
Well, that's what my question. You bring up the money, Russ, and that's what I was going to ask Eugene. How's your currency been lately? Has it been inflating lately?
Yeah, it has been inflating all last 25 years, or honestly saying still since the 1991 when Soviet Union crashed. That's the truly problem for our area, because it's a problem of every fiat money. But in our undeveloped world, and I'm surely saying that it's a very problem, because inflation. The most problem is people do not understand the close connection between government money, fiat money paradigm, and it's slowly robbering when government robs the fiat money. We try to educate them. Educate yourself, and everybody around you will be educated.
This is the thing. You're saying that, and I know that the people are now using technology to basically talk amongst themselves, saying how corrupt he is, okay, and perhaps organizing a flip-flop revolution. If they're that good with technology, and he's that bad with technology, I would expect more people, instead of valuing their wealth in frickin' rubles, because unfortunately some of the people there try to get their hands on Russian ruble. I mean, they think the Russian money is better. They should be going for the tip of the top, Bitcoin. You've got, and I think I said this last time, you are on the right track. You realize it. You're in the Bitcoin. You're preserving your wealth. You're preserving your freedom. If you need to get the heck out of there, you would just take your Bitcoin with you. But there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect there, that the people realize he's bad. They realize the situation is bad, but they haven't upped their game when it comes to their financials. They're still into their the local currencies. Again, are people trying to get their hands on dollars at least?
Yeah, in our history, dollar has always been the more solid and hard currency, and every people on our side knows that dollar is the best, euro is the second best, and rubles are now the best. Of course, you are raising the question, very, very good question, very difficult question. People in their mass, they are not so educated like we, and they do not see, maybe they will see the future connection between what money will we use or are we using and the political system. But it's too long distance for this, and we try to show this distance, to show if you have a government, they have a power, having power on your fiat money. Stop using fiat money. But it sounds like very, very revolution right now. That's all.
Well, it's not about what you think about money. It's about what you feel. Watch. When everybody starts to feel the pain, they're going to understand Bitcoin.
Well, I have another thing about understanding Bitcoin, and everybody in Belarus knows Russian, right?
Of course, there's cool neighbors.
So I mean, there's no excuse for not knowing about Bitcoin. There's plenty of Russian language stuff out there about Bitcoin, correct? I mean, there's plenty of Russian.
Even Putin himself is on record saying he can't do anything with Bitcoin. He can't.
Even he's talked about Putin's talking about Bitcoin. Everybody should know about Bitcoin in the Russian language.
So guys, there is no problem of not knowing Bitcoin. Just quick reminder: in December 27, Belarus had officially declared the decree of making the digital economy. It declared all over the world that we recognize Bitcoin and when try to implement Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and blockchain in our economics, and please come register your companies in our high technology park. Belarus has hyped well on Bitcoin. There's no problem of recognizing. The problem of using a small part of the population, of course, use Bitcoin like anywhere in the world.
But you're an economist, so you would understand the phenomenon of dead money, dead capital. The reason why that capital is not going to go to Belarus because the political economy isn't set up.
Yeah, well, he's not saying
that capital.
Yeah, he does understand, but he's not bringing that point up now. I mean, he's talking. I mean, he's talking about why the people aren't getting their darn hands on Bitcoin. Is what he says. Yeah,
they're 80%ers.
Keep going there, Eugene. What you were saying. Sorry.
Okay, so I think we will do our best for the next 10 years for actively promote and even, I could say, propagate or advertise cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology, and so on and so forth, because the blockchain technology is the Web 3.0. It's just not the cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is one of the hundreds or even thousands of applications which could improve our. And I'm totally sure, I'm totally believe that only blockchain technology, decentralized and distributed technology, will help people to unite more effectively in the fighting of these so old-fashioned, archaic structures, like we see all the government rigid, centralized, from up to bottom structures. Their time had gone. Our time has come.
Well, I do want to say, you bring up how your corrupt government has made Bitcoin announcements before. They do that so they can remain in power. They just, I mean, they'll say anything if they think it's going to help them stay up there and get publicity and whatever to help stabilize them. So there's reasons they do bring up certain topics at certain times, and it's a very interesting situation you have going over there. I do wonder what will happen during this fake presidential election, if the people will go beyond flip-flops. I hope they do. I hope the dude goes away somehow, but I don't. You said on the previous show, if Putin disappeared, and that's a long shot, then your leader would be out in a minute, because he would have no. He's allies with Putin, correct?
I would have said more. Vladimir Putin, is the only one source of Lukashenko's so-called legitimacy, because it's not real legitimate. Because the only one source of Lukashenko's being in power for the times, but he won't be on power during the last 5 years. It is almost impossible. If 100% people hate you, you cannot sit only on weapons. It means the constant guerrillas war, and when you fight against 10 millions, up to 10 million people, you can't win this unbloody war. That's my opinion.
You made. I just want to stress what you said. Your leader's only ally that's supporting him is Putin, which is similar to North Korea's situation, where their only ally is China. If China would drop the support of North Korea, there'd be no more North Korea. There's a legitimate comparison right there, and
Lukashenko is super trapped into the corner, like a real rat or real cockroach, because he has no allies all over the world. Only Putin, and even Putin doesn't help him like Lukashenko wanted him to help. Lukashenko is totally alone. He is based right now only on his guard of militia, of his policeman, not militia.
Secret
militia.
Police. His secret police.
KGB and so on. That's the only power he's based on.
All right.
It's totally a weak position.
Okay. We've gone off. It's a very interesting topic. JW, any comments, any questions for Eugene?
Not really. I just hope it goes well, man. It's a nasty situation to be in. I don't have any insights to share really, other than I hope that I hope it goes well. I hope whether you guys get rid of him or he stays, that turns out to be the thing that minimizes suffering. But I really don't know, and I'm supportive of the efforts that you guys are making, even though I don't know what will work and what won't work. It's one of the reasons that I really try to focus on Bitcoin, because I do think that I understand it. I understand the impacts that we'll have. I don't think it's got a lot of negative side effects. And revolutions and overthrowing, I mean, look what happened in Iraq. Like, he was definitely a bad guy, but I don't think anybody would say that Iraq is better off. So I think it's hard to know the consequences of this stuff. So I generally just try to say, man, I hope it goes well, and then just shut up.
Yeah, and I want to say, again, people of Belarus, if any of you are watching, get your financial lives straight, okay? Get into Bitcoin. No excuse to be having your wealth in a Belarusian bank right now. Who the heck, with things that unstable, but there are plenty of people, right, Eugene, that have money in the Belarus banks, right?
Of course, like every people in the world.
yeah, it's unfortunate. All right, Russ, any questions?
Look, even Trump flip-flops on it. You know, he accepted donations on his run up, and then now he's just trying to backstab it. And it's a political issue. Like I said, there's no political solution to this. You do have an option, the exit. You know, take it. And if you don't, you'll wait until you feel the pain, and then you will.
All right, let's get we got to hear the hour mark of the show, so it perfect timing. So we'll have everybody do. Let me just make sure there were no other topics I wanted to talk about. All right. Well, there's one real quick thing here. There's one real quick thing. Has anyone and this was asked of me. All of you are big into Bitcoin. Have you lost any friends because of Bitcoin, or have you moved away from people and become less close to people because your mindset has changed about your total mind, and you kind of see people in a different light, and you don't want to be around them anymore? Russ?
That will only happen if you talk about that men's group, men's rights. That will only, nothing ever happened with Bitcoin. People just get annoyed, you know. And then at the end of the day, look, Bitcoin, I think, is going to it's going to end up in the hands of very smart, disruptive thinkers. The speculators will end up selling at some point. They all do. That's their mantra. This stuff will end up accumulating. The biggest threat that Bitcoin represents to the hegemony, the culture elites, the plutocrats, is the fact that it's going to heavily capitalize disruptive thinkers. I myself have a number of ideas I will start, but I want to see this main adoption, and then I'll start looking to do my own projects.
May the first trillionaire on earth be a Bitcoin holder. Pound that like button. JW, going back to that, what I said, have any of your relationships changed because of Bitcoin?
No, not really. I mean, I've definitely lost some acquaintances over the COVID thing because I just, I can't be around people that are that dangerous that will flip and become agents of the state over the common cold that quickly. Dang it! I said something other than the virus. I'm sorry, man. Dang it.
It's all right.
I got to work on my new speak. Little 1984 reference for everybody. But actually, Bitcoin has made a lot of relationships easier for me, especially folks that are real status or gun control advocates, that sort of stuff, because it's a lot easier to put up with people when you don't really feel like they have much power over you. And there's still a lot of power in the democratic system over the next decade, but it's a lot easier to look at somebody that would like to control your children's future when you know that they can't. And it's also kind of fun to tell them that you know that they can't, right? Like, that's an interesting opinion. You realize how irrelevant that is, right? Like, it's the 3D printed guns thing all over again, right? Like, oh yeah, that's great. You'd like to impose your will on all of my children and children's children. But have you considered the fact that the government's going to be fully defunded at some point soon? So no, I haven't really. I mean, maybe some people have drifted away from me that I haven't really cared about, but in general, no, it's been kind of a pleasure.
All right, let's go to Eugene. Have you any of your relationships changed because of Bitcoin?
The answer is totally on the contrary. I never lost my friend, and quite the opposite. I turned my life on 180 degrees due to Bitcoin, and I have completely changed my life due to two things in my life. First is Austrian economics. Second is Bitcoin, like a logic consequence of knowing Austrian economics and the idea of sound money. Right now, I'm here like Crypto MC, and I'm doing what I love. And I'm conversating with the guys, especially with you guys. I totally wide my presence on the planet Earth on the internet due to Bitcoin, just due to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin changed my life. I'm not preying on Bitcoin. I just see it like in a technology which can return to people sound money to the people. And I want to observe this, and I want to help the situation as do my best. What I may do for the situation. I want to be part of that.
All right. Well, very positive take from you there. And I want to say we're going to get to the final statements here. First of all, you mentioned Crypto MC. You are the Crypto MC. It's in the background. Eugene is linked to below. All you Russian-speaking and English-speaking people, he's a good guy to follow. Also, there's a comment here real quick. What's this guy saying? What are Ukrainian President Zelensky? Any opinion on that there?
Yeah. With the Ukrainian President Zelensky, we were born in the same year in 1978, and I do clearly understand how he thinks. Honestly saying, I'm not learning the Ukraine situation. It's quite worse, the situation in Russia and Ukraine from the economic point. But the only one difference of the Ukraine from the Belarus and Russia are dictatorship countries. Ukraine is not. It is quite I would say an anarcho country. Yes, they have president, but they don't need president at all. And I see the future of Ukraine more interesting than the future of our country, Belarus.
Did you see it's more anarcho there? Anarcho? Was that what
yes.
Okay. They got this president, but they just do what the heck they're going to do.
Yeah. I meant that inside, in their psychological thinking, Ukrainian nation, they are more anarchic. They hate slavery organically. I don't know why do they elect president? Maybe that takes from the past, but organically they are freedom lovers, and we Russians and Belarusians are mostly the slavery lovers. It's a pity to say, it's very sad to say, but that's the truth. That's the big difference.
Wow. That's truth right there, baby. And so I would assume there's a higher percentage of Ukrainians that hold Bitcoin than Belarus. Well, I know than Belarusians, but maybe than Russia also. So good. I like freedom lovers here in America. You can say what you want about America, but during this whole virus thing, there are plenty of Americans that were speaking up, and I didn't see any other country people speaking up against this nonsense. Also, you said he's born in 1978?
Yes, we were born in 1978. Yes, I'm 43 years old.
He's a young leader there. Very interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess the younger one, the New Zealand woman is younger than that. I think she's not even 40. Okay. So any conclusionary thoughts there? Anything else you want to add, Eugene?
No.
All right. Well, thank you very much. He's linked below, everybody. Thank you, and good luck. Oh, my God. Good luck to the people of Belarus. Don't have that slave mentality, dudes. Have it. Be more like the Ukrainians. Freedom. Love it, baby. Okay. Now, Russ, your final words.
Well, since the topic of slavery has come up, I might as well mention that the best slave is one that willingly accepts those conditions as a type of weird freedom, as a type of patriotism, as a type of love. Bitcoin offers, I think, to me, the ability of people to finally get financial sovereignty, but it isn't just about decentralized money. It's about decentralizing work. I advocate about democratically run worker cooperatives as a solution on that part, but it's also another part that's going to be about education. And the way to solution that is to have open learning platforms, but also reinstitute apprenticeships. You actually learn by learning and by doing. And then finally, it's not going to be worth anybody's time. People like Max Kaiser and, like I said, Vortex and some of these have banned me because I talked about men's rights. Understand this, guys. You can profit from this all you want, but they can take it away. You have to understand what's at foot here. And that simp is the most willing slave right now is, I think, underestimated and under concerned, in fact.
All right. Hey, dude, I wouldn't cancel you just because you bring up the men going their own way. That's not cool. But again, and some of these people speak up against cancel culture, but then they're the quickest ones to hit that ban button or hit that block button or whatever. All right, dude, very, very good points there. And we will leave it with JW.
Right on. So I think the thing that I was most interested in that we talked about today is DeFi. I'm a little freaked out that that it's bigger than I thought because it's just so dumb. But I guess I'm going to get to see an ICO like bubble myself. So what I want to leave you guys with is this thought experiment, and I'll give you a little bit of the answer to it as well. But if you try to answer the question, why haven't there been any lotteries run on any of these supposed blockchains, right? I mean, I would propose there's only one blockchain. It's Bitcoin. Everything else is a fraud and a Ponzi, and it's really a better way to describe it is probably a grift. But that's one of the simplest sort of financial applications, right? Everybody takes a little bit of money, they put it into a pot, and then there's a certain random way that we select which person gets all of the pot, right? It may be the absolute simplest sort of smart contract or financial product or financial experience you can possibly come up with, but we haven't seen that exist on any of these other things. And I think the answer to that is Bitcoin doesn't support it yet because it doesn't support that sort of smart contracting, but it's coming. Something like Simplicity is going to enable these things. And maybe we'll even get some of this sort of stuff. Somebody will find a creative way to glue it together and create a lottery even earlier. I'm not sure. But so far, we don't have it because Bitcoin hasn't tried to do a bunch of smart contracting stuff. It's been very secure, very conservative, and it hasn't got around to it yet. But it hasn't existed on any of these other blockchains as well. And I believe the reason for that is that it would result in governments cracking down on these people because there's a ton of money in that particular grift, and governments have a pretty good control of it. So these guys they're having to do a little bit more subtle of scams where they can still pay off the right number of people, and it's not such a blatant, in-your-face attack on your local mafia. Because these things just can't hold up to it. So it doesn't make sense. And if, again, just use that as a thought experiment. If DeFi is real, if all of these things are real, why can't they do a lottery? It doesn't make sense they could do something much more complicated, like taking in loans and paying out interest over time and all that sort of stuff, without being able to do a very simple thing that is one of the most popular global financial instruments. I mean, it funds a lot of the schooling in the United States or these lottery tickets. There's a ton of money to be made in that. So why haven't they gone after that very simple application yet?
Wow, what a thought experiment to end the show with there, baby. All right, dudes. Well, thank you very much, JW, Eugene, and Russ. It has been a very unique show because we're all unique beasts here. Everybody, you get This Week in Bitcoin, the best freaking guests in the space every freaking Friday. Who knows what time on Friday, but you'll get it on Friday. New show here in the Bitcoin Meister ecosystem every day. Tomorrow, well, actually, right after this, I'm going to go on the backup channel, and tomorrow on the backup channel, Beyond Bitcoin type of stuff. Subscribe to both the backup and the this real channel, Bitcoin Meister. Everybody, enjoy your holiday or whatever it is for you. Try to be productive though, because there's so many people on Earth that are not productive. So you'll have an advantage over that. Love your freedom. Appreciate your freedom. Do remember, Russ said right now there's a lot of people that think slavery is freedom. It's unbelievable what's been going on in this year 2020. But I'm positive it's the freaking golden age. The 20%ers are going to make the most of it. So pound the like button, bang the bell button. Shabbat shalom. I will see you guys tomorrow, next week, whenever you tune in. Thanks, everybody.